What if a typical national park was filled with cultists and supernatural occurrences? Well, that what if is answered in this awesome analog horror series I found on YouTube. Hello everybody, and welcome to another video. I really enjoyed making the last video covering a horror topic, so I thought about going over another horror web series I came across recently. It's called and also made by a channel named Stag Education. I will again say, like I said in the last one, make sure you check out their videos directly from the creator as well. They did an amazing job, and I think in this video you'll see it as well. And like I don't know what it is, but I am so surprised that it doesn't have way more views than it already has. Like, I don't know, it baffles me. But like I want to say, nothing's better than watching it yourself. I'm going to do similar to what I did in the last one, which is covering each video and then giving my final thoughts and theories over it, and also giving my thoughts throughout the videos. So let's get started. Pine Barrens Hiking Safety is the first video of the series, and it starts off interesting for sure. The first video opens up with the Stag Education logo. As this clearly is the group this video is produced by, I always like how these analog horrors have like different groups, but anyway. It's a video that's going to be telling us how to stay safe hiking in this national park. And it's created by a guy named Dan. You should definitely take note of, because I promise you it becomes important. And also it says it's in collaboration with another place. It's called like Ocean County, but I'm not sure the significance of it yet, to be honest. The captions tell us how hiking in the New Jersey Pine Barrens can be a wonderful experience, but it is not without its dangers. You know it's never good when you hear that. You know. They also claim on this video we will be learning the SAFE method. S is the first saying, stick to the trails. The first section tells us we must make sure to stay on the right path and not get lost. Seems basic enough. They then show us what the different trail markers look like on trees. A single rectangle means the path continues straight ahead. Two rectangles forming a left diagonal indicate a left turn, and the other way of the same symbol means right. It also let us know that this place has become federally mandated to blaze these trails. And also to please not follow suspicious markers. As big red bold text pops up on the screen and says, "You will not return." So that definitely makes me want to go hiking through this national park. A then stands for acquire equipment. It starts off telling us how we must be prepared for obstacles we may face on hikes. It then gives us a hiker's checklist with things such as food, water, hiking boots, weather appropriate clothing, first aid kit, compass, hiking knife, and flashlight. They do let us know kindly that they have maps at the visitor center. Once it comes back to the safe screen, it gets very dark and eerie music, as it says, F is for fear the forest. Like, you can hear this light whistling on the video now. And also it has the text saying, the masked people have lived in the Pine Barrens for hundreds of years. So that took a turn for the worst. So then the most horrific line comes up with the text, an unholy entity holds dominion over the woods. Their oblations augment its strength. We then see an actual piece of footage from someone going into the park's trails at night. And it says if you hear the first whistling, you have ended up on a false trail. And when you hear the first bit of whistling, the camera looks up to see these two masked figures. One looks similar to an owl and the other does too. And then we finally make our way back to the safe screen with what E stands for, which is evacuate. As you could assume, it's time for a guy in the video to book it. They keep whistling toward him, and eventually the camera person runs into a bird masked individual. I can only assume the absolute worst. That's when it takes us back to the serene music and beautiful scenery of the area, telling us to stay safe out there. And that's where the first video ends. And if you thought that was bad, it gets a whole lot worse. First, I love how much the tone shifts when we get to F and E. It's so eerie. There clearly is either some entity or masked people in the woods along these trails, and at the federal level, they know this, which is even scarier. I feel like that's why they included the part about how in 1963 they mandated all trails to be blazed. This has been, like, in this universe, it's been an issue for a long time, and they don't know how to solve it. Also, clearly the camera guy most likely did not survive the encounter. And also different members of the group can be seen having different types of masks. I don't know the significance that it has, but it's interesting. And I think maybe it has to do with some hierarchy, like depending on what mask they're wearing, they're in a different level within their group. But I'm not really sure about that yet, to be honest. Also, White Stag Education is clearly a group that knows about this and wants to make sure the public truly stays safe. Though with that, let's remember that safe method and continue the series. Christmas Eve candlelight service is up next from our pals at White Stag. It starts off literally showing this church's service, saying it's hosted by Grandwood Church of the Pines, which to me already sounds off-putting, and it's presented by a pastor. It's also recorded by Dan once again, but also this other guy named Luke Bale. There's then a special dank screen where it has some names that will possibly come up later. The pastor then has this speech about Christmas bringing people together. There isn't much that's off until he gets to a passage from the book of Enoch, which is not typically accepted in Christian text. I'm not super into religion, so take it with a grain of salt, but I for some reason did know that. It doesn't make any sense, and even like straight up just research, you can find that out. It's not typically accepted. I also did some research to make sure, so clearly that makes this church seem kinda odd. It even goes on much longer through this passage. It references punishment to those who have committed crimes, and how they are banished essentially to damnation. Then we end up on a black screen due to a camera with a lens error. But we can hear all of the audio going on. Two guys seem to be talking to each other, and one seems pretty disgruntled with the other. They enter some kind of basement room, and then we hear our first very odd noise of the video.
Holy shit! Be quiet. This will only take a second.
They were just as taken aback as me. They try to shoot to kill it, but clearly that does not work at all. I don't know what they're thinking. A gun is not gonna help. I'm sorry. The creature just gets angrier and louder until they both start running for their lives. One gets taken by the creature, while the other is left running.
Fuck! Jesus Christ! Fuck! 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 Holy shit!
Finally, we have an end screen and the end of the second video. Well, that was interesting to say the least. I like that in this one we have that crazy sequence of the lens cap with just noise. It gives a horror aspect I feel like is truly amazing. It's like in FNAF on the camera screen where it's just Chica with, it's like in the kitchen and there's no visual, just the audio of her clanging around. Just, I don't know, I love those kind of aspects. And I feel like what makes this creature so horrifying at this time is I can't even think of what it looks like. I can't even visualize it. And it just makes this awful noise. Also, hearing the hellish screams from the guy who gets taken makes it even more horrifying. Also, the deep cut of using the Book of Enoch is kind of crazy, showing this small aspect that makes the church seem a little off, before we presumably hear the events of what happens when two of them enter the church basement. It's a short but sweet entry into this already intriguing series. Now on to the third video. Intuitain product information video is next up. And it first tells us that it wasn't produced by White Stag Education, but they're just showing it to educate people on why you should not take the Intuitain pill, as they say it's highly discouraged. We then see the text, over the past 7 years, Genesis Technologies has been developing a drug that heightens the actual accuracy of human foresight. These companies are never good. They never are. The drug is, of course, Intuitane, and the video will be showing the trials run by the Genesis company, and also disclose side effects of the pill. Test 1 is with mice in a pitfall maze. Group 1 was a control group, and mice could not make it to the cheese at all. They kept falling down the pitfalls because they would try to go straight to it. Though in Group 2, 76% of the mice made it to the cheese. They could actually deviate where the pitfalls were, unlike the control group. I think the iffy aspect of this is the mice in Group 1, literally, like I said, they took all the most direct path, which would be like the hikers on the trails taking the ones listed, while the ones in Group 2 deviated from the path, which the pill causes. That don't seem too good for hikers, going through this place. Test 2 is with humans and a stoplight. Group 1 is a control group again, and Group 2 had a 100 milligram dose of Intuitane. Each group has to attempt to guess what color light would glow at a stoplight before it happens. Their accuracy was then recorded, and Group 1 had a low 33.33% correct rate, while Group 2 had a 100% correct rate. Clearly this pill has something up. And they even say Group 1 relied on chance, while Group 2 relied on their intuition, which was heightened by the pill. Now we get to the potential side effects. The first one addresses that users may have very vivid, lifelike dreams. Yeah, not good. And they can cause insomnia or paranoiac tendencies. See, these pills are not it. They show 2 dreams that are caused by Intuitane affecting a person's subconscious mind, and also says it may predict the future. One was by Margaret Pendleton, showing a puppet. She talked about a show featuring puppet characters and a park ranger. She also said the puppet's name is Rex. The eerie part, though, is the show doesn't even exist. It's like a Candle Cove reference right there. This will come more into play later, though. The next dream is by Henry, saying he witnessed a meteor crashing into Earth and said it was near his home. Genesis then used this to find a new comet and named it after him. Like, what? Daniel Carpenter's dream is next, and it shows a group of hooded figures with some of the same masks as earlier, the 2 owl masks. And then there's a different bird mask as well as a rabbit one. And what seems to be like a cat or something, I can't 100% tell. They call the mask figures humanoids, and also the hole in the image, he said, had a lot of heat coming from it. Which, if so, that might be a hole straight to hell. Like, I don't like that. That future definitely isn't good. He also transcribed a melody that is literally the same one as the whistling the humanoid creatures do. If you put it like in a if, like, let's say you played it with like an instrument or something, it is literally the same exact tone. Then only 3 days after the dream, he had a violent encounter with the masked individuals, though he said the hole wasn't there. Then it just ends with a thank you for watching. Clearly, that Intuitane pill is not something to mess with. The predicting the future is already something that's not good. But what I truly believe more is something I'll kind of get to later. I want to hold off in it and like the full theorizing by the end, but I'll still throw some ideas out. This Genesis technology company clearly knows more than they're letting on. And also they have some idea about manifesting this awful future or something. They either really messed up or they know something. The series keeps getting better with each video, and I promise you, the next 2 get even crazier. The Stranger Danger puppet show is up next, and if you remember that girl's dream from the last one, you know where this is going. The video opens up with a show called Forest Friends, with this being their Stranger Danger special. It's even created by the same people who were co-creators of the last few, Dan and Luke. It opens up with Rex having a typical intro to a kid show.
Nice to meet you! I can't wait to tell all the other forest friends about you. My new friend. Say, Would you like to come camping with us?
They reference how there's many more forest friends, and also ask for us to go camping with them. The biggest thing from this, though, is that we're meeting Ranger Luke. A knock comes at the door, and Anna shows up. She says that Rex doesn't know if we're a stranger, so they lead us to Luke to learn about stranger danger. I first off want to say the production of this one is so great, and it just ramps up even more. Clearly, what we end up finding out is whenever they reference strangers, they don't just mean an individual you don't quite know. They mean something a lot worse. Anna and Rex bring us to meet up with Ranger Luke and reference how they met us. And Luke says we're not a stranger, of course, though he then wants to tell us about how to spot a stranger. I think you can see what a stranger really is at this point, like I said. He then sings us an amazing song. I'm gonna let it play.
There was no sweet granny lying sick in her bed. It was too late, Granny locked the door. Fred saw her face, it wasn't her.
I love the audio crackling, and it really immerses you in it. The song kind of goes by the Red Riding Hood story, but things go wrong because she goes down the wrong path, and also heard birds singing, but there were none. She makes it to the cabin, but Grandma isn't there. A wolf is there, but it looks pretty much exactly like the cultist with animal mask. It's so eerie how they use this song in this. It has a creepy story, imagery, and the audio quality, oh my god. Like it's definitely pretty spooky. Like this is the analog horror I like. Like there are some, and I know it's like an oversaturated genre sometimes, but this is the kind of one that deserves respect and is great. Like it does what it needs to do to actually make you invest in it, and it's so interesting, and I love these videos. I really hope that they come back to doing them. They then have a filler before coming back to two others of the group, Oswald and Gleason. They're both lost, which is never good in that forest. You don't want to be lost, bro. They of course realize they're on a false trail and hear whistling, which supposedly means the predators aren't hunting, but a very ominous sequence occurs. We then are brought to a pig named Mr. Gungus. Well, what a great name. He does a game where we must spot the strangers, which clearly look like a small version of the cultist. Though after the spot the stranger objectives, on the third clip we are asked, can you spot the adversary? And you might be thinking, what in the actual hell is that? Well, you're about to find out. It then has a frame caught where it says, the burning swords protect us. I don't really know what this means yet, but it's there. And then it says, it rides under the forest, which did not make me feel any better. So yeah, he's all around the forest. That's not good. Then, after that, we're knowing the game for the day and taking back to the whole group together. Luke has the whole group go over their stories of the day. Anna and Rex went fishing. They then go to Gleason and Oswald, where they say they went hiking and got lost and heard the strangers. They got out of it by what we learn is a strategy, staying quiet when they're whistling and also being still. But if they do a different type of whistle, you're supposed to close your eyes and run away. Luke then says to make sure not to follow strangers into the woods, as they aren't like us. They not like us. I'm sorry, I know that was cringe, but they're not like us. There's then an ending sequence that says, in memory of the Grand Wood Fort, with each of their names. Ryan Rex Michaels, Samuel Gleason, Oswald Jones, and Anna Carpenter. That reveals to us where each of the puppet characters got their names from. Wow. Just wow. The production on all these videos is amazing, but here it went up to a whole other level. I don't know how this series isn't even more popular. I really don't. The songs are so eerie, and I love how we get so much more info, but not necessarily enough to make us feel much better about it. And obviously a huge thing that sticks out is revealing that one of the strategies you can use to possibly avoid the strangers. The first is the being quiet while they're whistling, and the other is when they whistle a different way to close your eyes and run. I don't know if that really works, but it's clearly the best they have. There's also the interesting part about how the dream actually came true, and the puppet show didn't exist and now is a reality. And then finally, the most off-putting reveal is the adversary. I'm sorry, that shook me. That shook me the first time I watched it, and I was like, oh my god. If that name didn't make you think, oh shit, I don't know what will. It's clearly some huge creature, though it's said to writhe under the forest, which made me think back to the dream the boy had where we saw a group of strangers and there was a hot hole in the middle. I'll get more into my theories and thoughts soon, but before I do, we can get to the final entry so far in the series. Grand Wood Park Ranger Training is the last entry this channel has put up so far, and it's definitely a doozy. Of course, it's brought to us by White Stag Education. It says that we have made it to the next step toward being hired as a Pine Barren Park Ranger, and we're introduced to Ranger Craig. What a nice looking guy. There's then a very off-putting screen that says, you may now choose to resign and leave the Grandwood Park Ranger program, or continue with your training. If you choose to resign, notify your training supervisor immediately. You cannot resign later. The content on the tape is confidential, clearly, and they don't want all the public to know about it. The sub ala angel text means under the wing of an angel in Latin. I don't necessarily know what the importance is yet, but it's something I took into account. The first part we are taken to is environmentally sensitive and unsafe areas. We are told about how we must protect the people who come into the park, and also we of course are told about false trails yet again, and how we must mark them with red triangles. You are of course supposed to let visitors know they can't take the false trails, and then for some reason we cut away to a pretty horrifying stranger. They're just chilling. But we're also told if the visitors don't accept leaving, we can aggress. So you know what that means. Also, we're told that sometimes strangers can put up false markers that aren't on the map. So they're getting worse. This clearly is another way to get people to end up down the false trails. Part 2 is called Tempting Sights and Sounds. It brings up strangers using limitations to attract visitors down the wrong paths. They even give them a scientific name, Homo personatus. We learn about the first of two different patterns the strangers can use while whistling, which helps us learn that what they left referenced in the last video. The first doesn't necessarily mean danger, unless they walk onto their false trail. We are then taken to the third part, when safe areas become unsafe. This is where the other whistling is brought up.
Whistling pattern. This whistling is how they communicate.
So clearly, as you can see, the hunting gambit is when there's definitely problems. The park rangers need to evacuate visitors, and also a siren will go off. They then perform a head count, and if there's any missing, park rangers will go look for them as well, as an attempt to subdue the hunting gambit, which is the next section. Subduing a hunting gambit. We're of course told to subdue the hunting gambit in an attempt to find unaccounted for visitors, but we are told we most likely won't even find the bodies. They're gone. They're pretty gone. That definitely doesn't hinder hope at all. Park Ranger Craig walks around and actually has a stranger following him. We even see the different mask again, and that's when the sequence happens.
To aggress. do not cease fire, no matter how human their cries sound. They have surrendered their body to the forest, and you are doing them a service by freeing their soul.
Craig takes them out, and there's so much to dissect here. They clearly are human, but have given their life to the forest. This really pushes the whole cult idea way more, and it also gives more context to these things. The reason strangers look so human is because they are, or at least were at some point. The training video then concludes, and we see the other ranger who's been talking to us. His name is Dan, and Luke comes on screen with Craig. Clearly, Dan and Luke are the same two as before. Wow, just what a video. Though I'm now going to talk about all of my theories and thoughts over the whole series, and I hope you'll stay along for that. There's so much to unpack, but I'm going to try and cover what I think is going on. First off, I think the candlelight service has to come last. This is due to Luke being taken by a creature, presumably the adversary, and eaten. This would make sense as being at the end, since most other entries have Luke, and the Intuitain entry has to come before the puppet show due to the girl dreaming of a show that didn't exist. There's also some ideas that seem to reference the Jersey Devil, which is a mythical creature that's said to be in the forest within New Jersey, which is where this series takes place. There's also clearly the demonic aspects that relate to it. And it's also like Mothman as well. That's like another cryptid that kind of falls under this. I think the Jersey Devil and Mothman are actually the same name, or the same thing, but with different names. Not sure though. Then now I'll go more into my theories of the videos. The first I have is that I sort of think Intuitain may cause the manifestation of the things that happen, not necessarily predict them. So there's the puppet becoming a reality after it's brought up. Pretty much every example brings up how it's intuition, but that feels too easy. I feel like there's something they're clearly not telling us. Like the nightmare the boy has of the strangers has a hot hole in the ground, and this could have been part of what caused the adversary to exist. This could be a stretch, but it kept sticking out in my mind. Again, I could be wrong, but it's just an idea I had. Also, this is a change of subject, but I feel the strangers clearly had to be humans at some point. I mean, they even referenced that pretty much. They were humans who were possibly taken over by the adversary in their mind. They then lost their sanity and surrendered their bodies to the forest. And I think they came physically before the adversary. This could be a wild stretch, but I've really been thinking through this. The boy had the dream and felt heat coming from a hole near the strangers, though it wasn't there yet. What if the strangers were human, taken over by the adversary, and then brought the adversary into the world, which opened a hole to what is presumably hell? Now it roams under the forest there within. Is that idea that they more believe in that thing, the more real it becomes. I think it becomes stronger with fear and thoughts of it being around. And this even combines with the manifesting idea I had. That all of this has started happening due to people bringing it into reality through thought. I can be so wrong. Though that was like my big theory I really have thought about. Each entry has so much. And I really hope we can get lucky and get even more content from them. I can't say that enough. I want to see the series get more entries. Well, now that you've heard my thoughts, please let me know yours. I love responding to comments, and it's always a lot of fun seeing what you all think. Also, again, if you haven't watched the channel White Stag Education for yourself, please do. The videos are even more eerie when you don't have some random guy like me babbling about them. Also random, but I am so grateful for the support I got on the last video. That was a huge milestone for me. Y'all have no idea. And if you enjoyed this one, of course make sure to like, comment, or subscribe if you feel like it. Thank you all so much for watching, And as always, stay safe.